Do you struggle with procrastination? My brother James used to be in the same situation, always putting off important tasks like going to the gym, studying, or taking on challenging projects. No matter how much he knew these things were good for him, James couldn't find the motivation to start. But then, he discovered a clever trick that changed everything. He realized that relying solely on willpower wasn't enough to beat procrastination. James found a strategy to deceive his own brain into doing difficult tasks, even when he didn't feel like it. He made a conscious decision not to let procrastination control his life. James was determined to overcome the negative feelings that held him back and become more productive and focused. We won't sugarcoat it. Breaking free from procrastination isn't easy. But with the techniques James learned, he took control of his future and unlocked his full potential. The results have been amazing. First, let's think of our brain as a spoiled child who throws a fit when things don't go their way. Our mind behaves similarly when faced with stress or boredom. It tricks us with a sneaky trick called procrastination. It makes tasks like chores, projects, or exams seem much harder than they actually are. The intensity of negative feelings we have about a task depends on how big it is. For example, going without our phone for 2 months would be much more uncomfortable than going without our phone for just an hour. Writing a whole book feels more overwhelming than writing a single paragraph. Our mind is good at estimating the effort and struggle needed to reach a goal. That's why it's important to adjust our goals and make them more manageable. Here's a helpful tip. Tell yourself you'll only work on the hard thing for a short time. Start with small steps, like learning 2 to 3 stock trading terms instead of trying to learn 20 at once. Getting super fit might feel impossible, but begin with just 1 set of bench presses. If running a 10K seems daunting, start by jogging around the block. According to James Clear, this is called the 2-minute rule. By making the task less intimidating, we can reduce the negative feelings attached to it. Try it out. Work on the difficult task for a short while and see how you feel. You might realize it wasn't as bad as you thought it would be. Then ask yourself, what if I continue a little longer? How hard would it be to learn 1 more stock trading term or do 1 more bench press? Breaking down a big challenge into smaller steps makes it less scary and increases your chances of completing it successfully. Now let's discuss our ego and how we perceive ourselves. Our mind has a strong desire to protect our ego because it's tied to our sense of self-worth. For example, if James believes he's talented or superior to others, it makes him feel special. But when faced with something outside of his comfort zone, like asking out someone he finds attractive, James might unconsciously avoid it. Why? Because if he fails, he would prove that he's not as talented as he thought, which would hurt his ego. So instead of risking that, James chooses to avoid the challenging task altogether. Before I continue, I'd like to give you 5 seconds to pop the subscribe button. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Did you do it? Awesome. Let's continue. Another technique that has been incredibly effective for James is to simply start preparing. For instance, if he feels resistant to going to the gym, he'll change into his workout clothes, put on his shoes, and grab his keys. When James feels frustrated about studying, he'll open his textbook, review his study schedule, and get his calculator ready. James isn't committing to actually doing the task, he's just going through the motions of preparing for it. Usually, by taking these actions, James gradually convinces himself that he might as well do it now since he's already taken these steps. Here's another idea you can try. Combine difficult tasks with enjoyable activities. Remember, our brain can be like a spoiled child, so it's important to handle it in a way that reduces resistance. Imagine you're babysitting a child who throws a tantrum when asked to do homework. In that situation, you could say, if you finish your homework, you can watch a movie you like. This method, called batching, is often underestimated but very effective. James used it a lot when he was in school. He would plan to hang out with friends, but only after finishing his work. Alternatively, James would allow himself to watch anime while using the Stairmaster. By connecting hard work with enjoyable activities, the negative feelings associated with the task won't be as strong, making it more likely for you to follow through. Now let's talk about ego. Our ego is shaped by our past experiences and has a big impact on who we think we are and how we see the world. In Maxwell Maltz's book, Psycho-Cybernetics, he explains that our actions, feelings, behaviors, and abilities are always in line with our self-image. We can only act in ways that match our beliefs about ourselves. However, it's important to know that our beliefs don't directly affect our action. Our ego resists taking action because it's afraid of failure. One approach we can try is easing the pressure on our ego. In medical school, James faced many situations that pushed him out of his comfort zone, like giving lectures and delivering tough news. Some classmates seemed unfazed by these challenges. Even when they made mistakes, they stayed enthusiastic about bouncing back. Curious about their mindset, James asked a friend how she stayed positive. She said she focused on having fun, treating it like a game, and embracing learning. This idea struck a chord with James. By removing the pressure and enjoying the task, resistance decreases. We not only find joy in what we're doing, but also perform better. Alex Lowe, an exceptional mountaineer, was known for his infectious enthusiasm. He once said that the best climber is the one who enjoys themselves the most, and I believe this applies to many aspects of life, especially when facing difficult challenges. Now you might be wondering, but what if I can't see any way for this difficult task to be enjoyable? What if waking up early at 5 a.m. and running in the freezing cold to the gym to lift heavy weights doesn't seem enjoyable at all? Okay, this time I'll give you 3 seconds to pop the subscribe button. 3, 2, 1. Well, there's another technique that we can use to influence our brain, changing our self-talk. We'll have internal conversations, but many people underestimate the impact of the words we choose. Language has a sneaky way of tricking our own brain. Let me give you an example. If I tell myself, I need to work out and get fit, my brain processes it as, if I need to get fit, it means I'm not already fit. And if I'm not fit, why bother working out? So I won't. My brain resists the idea of exercising because it doesn't align with how I see myself. However, if I change my words and say, I am someone who works out, things could shift. What do people who work out do? They go to the gym and usually have good fitness. By going to the gym and tackling the challenging task, I'm aligning my actions with my self-image. Remember, we can only act based on how we perceive ourselves. I understand this may sound odd, but I'm not suggesting we deceive ourselves. Clearly, I can't claim that I'll start $1 billion company tomorrow. That would be unrealistic. But this is why the language we use is crucial. The key to influencing our brain is to align our identity with the actions of the person we aspire to be, rather than solely focusing on the end outcome. It's not about pretending to be super fit, it's about acknowledging that we are individuals who engage in regular exercise. Do you see the distinction? One approach is grounded in progress and actions, while the other relies on fantasies. It's essential to recognize that constantly deceiving our brain is not a sustainable solution for motivating ourselves to tackle challenging work. However, once we establish consistency in our actions and habits, we won't need constant tricks. Consistency sets off a chain reaction, fueling our motivation. By consistently taking action, we make progress, which in turn boosts our motivation. Once we develop consistency, we will find joy in undertaking challenging tasks. Give these strategies a try and evaluate their effectiveness for yourself. Be sure to pop the subscribe button and watch more of our videos.